And welcome once again to the Horizon Roundtable. We've got ourselves a nice off-season summer episode this time around. I'm Bob McDonald. I'm at campuspressbox.com, and I'm on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And with me, as always, Jimmy Lemke.
Hello, everybody. I am from PantherU.com, obviously, and yeah, I'm enjoying my off season.
Well, as much as you can enjoy your off season, all things considered. He's on Twitter at PantherU too as well. Except of course now he's at PantherU, but he's added some new people to get blocked. Unfortunately,
yes, I did.
We got a little, it is the off season. Things that are going on. The big thing is, and this has conference title implications to it, is Alec Peters. Alec Peters is staying at Valpo. He went through the whole workout thing and combine, and well, not the combine, but he went through all that whole thing and decided it was better for him to stay at Valpo. So, Jimmy, what with Alec Peters coming back, does that, and despite the fact they just changed coaches, where does that put? Does that put Valpo still at the top of the conference at this point in time?
Man, it's so early. At this point in time, yes, I would say so. It's not like Matt Lodich was picked up off the street.
No,
he's been at Valpo. He's a Valpo guy. How long has he been an assistant there? It was a hire about continuity. I think Valpo saw what Butler did when Barry Collier leaves. They hire Todd Licklider. When Todd Licklider leaves, they hire Brad Stevens, and in both of those situations, you didn't miss a beat with either coach. So that's what I would expect out of Valpo. They lose David Skara, and I think actually when I saw that Peters was coming back, I almost wonder whether or not Skara saw that as Peters being in front of him. For I don't know if he had been maybe sold on being the guy and wanted to go somewhere where he could get a lot more playing time, because obviously, when Peters is there, Peters is going to be playing more than 30 minutes.
Skara, the thing with Skara, though, is that he actually made his decision to transfer out even before Alec Peters had made a decision on whether or not he was going to stay in the draft or go transfer somewhere else, because he had that option too. So David Skara had made the decision that he was transferring out way before any Alec Peters made a decision at all. So I don't know if that had played into it at all. But the Skara thing is a whole other interesting situation, because here you have a guy who wants to transfer and is trying, and apparently was trying to transfer to Vanderbilt, it looks like, and fought the university on it and lost.
Well, there's a couple things here. First off, Skara had made the decision to transfer before Alec Peters made any announcement.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all would agree that there are certain things that teammates will know and their coaches will know. There are things that are known inside a program. So maybe Peters, maybe he had known when he was ready to do that Peters was going to stick around in all likelihood, or something like that. Or maybe Peters instead really is just going to test the waters, but it's not. He's expecting to come back. As far as not being able to transfer to Valpo, or transfer from Valpo to Vanderbilt, I understand the frustration of a lot of Valpo fans. Honestly, I think you'd have to look at it as if that's your kid. Say you have a 20-year-old kid and they commit to play somewhere. They're not really committing to play for a place in the recruiting process. more than anything else, you're being sold on a coaching staff, and so players are almost universally more attached to their coaches than they are to the place, because the place is it's bricks and mortar, and the people are flesh and blood. So it's kind of like how we look at our own situation up here, with all the players getting really 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 angry at Amanda Braun over the Jeter firing. It's the same thing with Skara. He's attached to Bryce Drew because he came to Valpo to play for Bryce Drew.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that Valpo fans who are angry at Skara need to remember, number one, this is a person who wants to go do something else, and he wants to go to a specific place, and really, who are you to tell them what they can do? I look at Gary Waters.
Oh boy.
And I'm not talking about the transfers of the last couple of years. Don't worry about that. I'm actually thinking about Anthony Davis.
Oh,
because he had the commitment to play for Cleveland State,
and then grew half a foot and went to Kentucky.
And he grew half a foot, and all of a sudden he's one of the top recruits in the country. And Gary Waters understood something that a surprising amount of coaches and universities don't. Gary understood that you don't do yourself any favors by trying to fight this kid. Up here in Wisconsin, over at Madison, Bo Ryan tried to fight Jared Udoff transferring to Iowa. Because he didn't want to have to play him twice a year, and it ended up blowing up in his face, and it blew up in his face, and for the right reasons, because these are people. I realize that when you're hired on at a company or a high enough employee that you have you have a pretty specific contract. Sometimes they'll involve that no compete clause where if you leave you can't go to a competition. But Vanderbilt's not Valpo's competition. They don't play each other. Unless they get to the postseason and run into each other. They don't have it just doesn't seem to me. It seems to me like sour grapes more than anything else. And when I look at the ADs around the conference, I respect Mark LaBarbera really at the top. At the top, I think we have a number of great ADs, and I really think that LaBarbera is great. But I think that if this was, or if if he's pushing this, I think it was the wrong decision. I think you should have let Scar go wherever he wanted to, because unless he's going to UIC or Milwaukee or another Horizon League school, like I at least understand why. But even in that situation, that's going to blow up in your face. It's Scar wanted to go play for the guy that he came to play for, and you have for the fans that disagree, you have to look at it from as if you're his father or you're his mother. You have to look at it from that point of view, and you have to understand that this is a person, and this person wants to nobody would be able to tell you that you couldn't transfer from Valparaiso University to Vanderbilt University. So why do you get to tell this guy that he can't transfer to Vanderbilt University and continue his college athletics career? So that's just how I look at it. I mean, there's a lot of variables, but at the end of the day, you're really it's just sour grapes, really.
Yeah, well, I don't really honestly have an opinion about it one way or the other. These things have happened have been happening a lot in the last couple of years, and it's happened. It's happened to Cleveland State. It's happened everywhere. So it's to me, it's not it's just the name of the game at this point in time. Deal with it and kind of move on, or don't, and But in terms of the roster at Valpo, with Peters back, in Skara or no Skara, that this is still a pretty good, a really good program. And with the continuity from transitioning from Drew to Lodich, the loss is going to be minimized. I think they're probably gonna miss Keith Carter more than they do David Skara. That's my own opinion. Keith Carter, of course, petitioned for a 6th year and was denied by the NCAA. So, but again, they've got so much they still have so much in the arsenal that it's that's still going to be pretty scary.
That's another that Keith Carter thing is just another case of the NCAA flexing its muscles because it has muscles and periodically it needs to flex them. You do nothing for. I mean, I am a fan of a program that is a rival to that university, and I think that it's ridiculous that they wouldn't let that kid play. I mean, how many minutes did he even play in that one year that they're counting? I'm not able to pull the numbers off the top of my head.
It wasn't that many, I'll tell you that. I think it's like 29 minutes or something like that whole first season or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was very minimal that 1 year. And then, the consistency is kind of baffling to me. That again, just part of the game. But in all honesty, all things being equal, I'd rather be playing Uno.
We had, before this season, we had talked about, I had talked to the coaches at our staff about the possibility of J.R. Lyle, one of our, I think he was a guy in our rotation, the possibility of J.R. Lyle getting a 6th year because his freshman year of eligibility that he played, he redshirted at Northern Iowa, and then he transferred to a JUCO. Excuse me. And at the JUCO, he broke his hand like 10 games into the season. But when you're at a JUCO, the games don't count as much as like Division I games. So they had talked about pursuing a 6th year of eligibility for him. And obviously that didn't come to fruition because we had the we had our whole situation, so that kind of changed. So Lyle was another guy to bring up, but I thought that it was pretty stupid.
Speaking, Jimmy, of your whole situation,
sure.
The saga continues in Milwaukee. Of course, you're only now getting half the story now that Amanda Braun has blocked you on Twitter. Congratulations. Just chalking up another AD getting blocked by blocking Panther U. I think you're not. I'm wondering if how many of them are you going to have blocked by the time it's all said and done? I think. I don't know, man.
It's a real joke. We talk about she'd say things like she doesn't hold any ill will towards people. She doesn't have. She doesn't dislike people, especially, people were asking her if there was any animosity, that she had towards Jeter. And, you mentioned that she blocked me, but she never followed me to begin with. So I don't think she really cared, what I had to say. She followed other fans of the program, other fans that would have, more, more purse strings to loosen up and give money. So I'm sure that was part of it, but she also didn't follow Rob Jeter. So, I mean, this is an athletic director that just she kind of lies or tells half truths almost every time she opens her mouth. It's kind of the norm now that I just expect that every time she talks, I'm gonna have to. You have to parse her words to find out what she's actually saying.
Which leads me to the most ridiculous thing I've seen this week, and I say this week because so many other ridiculous things happen. You had actually tweeted this out, and I read this. There was a member of the Wisconsin Board of Regents who had openly questioned why Milwaukee should have an athletic department in general. Really?
That's actually a.
What the hell is that all about?
That's not something that's not a notion that has been completely is completely new. Every now and then you hear fans of Madison kind of question it. It's always Badgers that do it. Marquette fans, obviously at a private university, have never really say anything about it. But you hear Badger fans, and it's usually coming off some kind of success that we've had. Like, why do they even exist? Or it's coming off of some kind of really bad year.
But for a member of the Board of Regents to say something like that, that's powerful dumb. I'm just throwing that out. To put it into perspective as well. As you probably know, the state of Illinois is having a real issue with their budget. The governor and the state legislature are butting heads, and they have a massive budget issue, and the state hasn't been able to allocate any funds to any of its universities. This includes the University of Illinois system, which includes, of course, UIC. There has never been any talk of, for practical reasons, even though there's not as much money coming in as there once was. There's never been any talk of UIC getting rid of by anybody at the state level, be it the Board of Regents, be it anybody, talking about getting rid of UIC athletics. So it strikes me as ridiculously silly that a member of the Wisconsin Board of Regents would even suggest it at all. Did he walk it back at all? I mean, I'm just curious.
It was you have to remember that this is there's a bit of context that you have to get from this. The Board of Regents is the 18-person governing body, and not very long ago, more of the regents came under more of the slots for regents to fill came under the control of the governor's office, as far as to appoint people to the Board of Regents. Obviously, this brings a conflict of interest with the major budget cuts that UW system is facing. $250 million that was cut out of the budget by the Republican State House, and Governor Walker has appointed your run-of-the-mill conservatives to the Board of Regents, to a governing body of the system of higher education. There's nothing wrong with being a Republican. I know that when you're looking at
that also strikes me as interesting as well, because of the fact that as you know, in Ohio, Republican governor, Republican dominated state legislature, but nobody's actively discussing at all drowning higher education in a bathtub.
Well, I think John Kasich, as much as you despise him, I'm sure.
I don't despise the guy. We open the only. Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people in Ohio disagree with John Kasich, but what I would say is that I think John Kasich knows where to pick his spots.
Was the only people who did. Ohio was the only people who didn't who voted for him instead of Donald Trump, knowing full well he had no chance of being president. So say what you will about John Kasich, and I know I've said a few things, but at least we're not at least we have the president's mind to realize that there are some alternatives that are less savory, if you will.
There are a great many people who would be happier to see him as the nominee rather than Donald Trump. But we're getting away from what I'm saying. That what I meant is that he picks his spots better and than our governor does. Governor Walker, largely since in the last 5 years, really his major, I guess you could call them accomplishments, he's kind of attacked education, the UW system specifically, because the UW system is funded at a very high level by the state. I don't want to get into the actual whether or not the UW system is funded well. We all have our own personal beliefs on that, but what I'm saying is that this is somebody who has he has an agenda and he appoints people who support his agenda, and the Board of Regents that runs the UW system that relies on this money becoming run more and more by fiscal conservatives, one of them being Tim Higgins from the Fox Valley, who is a Madison alumnus, by the way. Tim Higgins is this regent that suggested, why does UWM even play athletics at all? And for those who don't know, a quick rundown: Madison, student enrollment of about 41,000. Milwaukee, about 29,000. It has been as high as 32. Madison's been as high as 43. No other school in the UW system is higher than 12,000. Green Bay, of the 13 four-year schools, Green Bay is actually, I believe, third smallest or fourth smallest as far as enrollment.
I think you mentioned that in a previous pod.
And of all of these 13 four-year schools, Madison's the only one that is, that can fund itself. And 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. Before Donna Shalala was hired as chancellor, before she hired Pat Richter to be AD, who went and got Barry Alvarez, who turned the football program upside down and got things kicking, Madison was a university that relied heavily on its student population as well as state funding to run its athletics program. So I would point to Tim Higgins and say, well, look, man, you want to, if we're having the same conversation in 1986 rather than 2016, running your own alma mater's athletic department in the same way. And of course he would not, because, well, we're in the Big Ten or whatever. But the point is that Madison got better over time because it was able to grow as an athletic department. And Milwaukee, and I know that some people will roll their eyes when I say this, but I truly believe that Milwaukee as an athletics department is one of the biggest sleeping giants in the country. We've been incredibly mismanaged and misrun as an athletics program for 7 years. Before that, we were run very much like a Division III program that was masquerading as Division I. Our athletic Hall of Fame carries the name of Bud Haiti, who was the AD from 88-89. And then he shortly thereafter brought us back to Division I. We were Division I in the 70s. He brought us back to Division I and then retired in 2009. He was a very good administrator, athletic director. He didn't micromanage athletic programs. He was a very good AD, but he was not a fundraiser. He was not the kind of guy who would really get people very excited to be part of things. So our fundraising was never there. So when we went to the Sweet 16, nothing really came of it. There were a lot of people who were out, holding their pocketbooks open, checkbooks, and they had a pen. They were ready to write giant checks to us, and the university had no idea what to do. And at the time that happened, the chancellor was a guy named Carlos Santiago. He had replaced Nancy Zimpher, and Nancy Zimpher she was the chancellor that really athletics could be a big deal. So when she allowed Bruce Pearl to do what he needed, she allowed Bud to allow Bruce Pearl to do what Bruce Pearl needed to do to succeed, and that's how we got the Sweet 16. But she left, and then Bud and her replacement Santiago didn't know what to do, so they never really understood how to capitalize on it. So when I say that Milwaukee is, one of the biggest sleeping giants in the country, I say this based on the fact that we are one of the 3 or 4 largest public universities. Actually, I think so. All universities, really. I think we're one of the largest, nonprofit traditional universities that does not have a football program. There's a reason that VCU has been able to succeed at the level it's been able to succeed at, and it's not just because they got Shaka Smart. It's not just because they had good leadership from now disgraced Norwood Teague, or that they set up the Villa 7. Those things all happen, and those are great. But part of that's because VCU in itself had the capacity, because it's has 36,000 students and does not have football holding it down, which is why Wichita State adding football would be such a terrible idea. So I look at Milwaukee and I say, well, we have this. We could be something great if we ever had the leadership that could figure out how to take advantage of everything. So when Tim Higgins brings up, why does UWM even exist in Division I athletics, I'll turn around and say, look, Jagoff, there's nothing. There is no school of our size that's running around as a Division II or Division III program that should be. If there are schools that are in Division II or Division III that are playing at our level, they are not top level research universities. We just became an R1 research university. We are the top tier of research. So we are at the top of that level, and we started putting our research together 10 years ago. I mean, our university has grown by leaps and bounds, and that's great. But if we can somehow in some way, figure out how to get our athletics program run correctly, and that's not Nate D, who's a middle manager that runs all the way up to the chancellor. Those people all have to be on board and get it together. And what we saw when we went to the Sweet 16 was we saw a program that got it together without having the resources and not having any success prior. And Bruce Pearl didn't exactly do it the Boy Scouts way, the Scouts way, but he got it done. And Milwaukee as a program, it needs that leadership. We don't need to drop to Division II or Division III or cut athletics altogether. But I'm sure that a smart college sports fan who is an alumnus and fan of the Wisconsin Badgers, I am sure that guy looks at our program and will worry. I'm sure that guy will worry, because what happens if Milwaukee were to get a football team? Well, Wisconsin football has been really built on its walk-on program. It's built on the fact that there are no other Division I football programs in Wisconsin, and football is the number one choice of almost all the best athletes in high school in this state. So I went to high school with a kid named Ricky Wagner, he was a freshman when I was a senior. He had an offer to play basketball on scholarship from our coaches at Milwaukee, and he was a 6'8", 220-pound power forward that, he was a very good basketball player, and he could have played pro, as a basketball player down the road, but he wanted to play football, so he walked on at Madison. If Milwaukee had a football scholarship, maybe that guy would have played football here rather on scholarship rather than walking on at Madison. Is what I'm saying. So I think a guy like Higgins, who may be a smart athletics fan, would look at Milwaukee as something that takes away from his alma mater. And that's partly why he would float that notion. The other part being that he is a fiscal conservative that doesn't want money spent on stuff that he sees as frivolous. Well, Tim Higgins, Milwaukee athletics is not frivolous. Amanda Braun was right to point out that visibility is a big part of what athletics brings to the table. Have you ever heard of Northeastern Illinois University? No, a lot of people haven't. A lot of people my age haven't, at least, because Northeastern Illinois disbanded its athletics program in the mid '90s. So there's a reason that there's a reason that we play athletics. Visibility is part of it, but really, there are a lot of things that it provides, even at a school like ours. I probably would not have considered Milwaukee as heavily if it were not a Division I athletics program. I probably would have gone to, say, Whitewater, which was successful in sports at a Division III level. Or I probably would have tried going out of state or somewhere else. Milwaukee, Division I provides the university a level of visibility. So that gets you indoors. When you play a national television game on, say, ESPN or whatever station, you are having a million people or more are watching your game on television, and while they're watching your game, they're seeing 8 commercials produced by your university that advertise your academic program, not your athletics program. So it's important when you're reaching beyond your normal area. We're trying to reach out beyond southeastern Wisconsin to get students. We want more students to apply. We want more of them. We want better students. We want to get better. We can't do that if nobody in California or Maine has heard of us. And the way they hear about us is because they'll turn on ESPN one day and see our basketball team play. A good university, and this comes back to the leadership thing, will also figure out how to succeed based on its, they'll figure out how to use, they'll get student retention from running the athletics program correctly. If athletics is fun and it succeeds, and the experience is something that is memorable and engenders passion in the student base, then you stand a much higher chance of keeping those students at your university. Obviously I'm a bigger fan than others, but when I had spoken with my advisor when I was a junior, because I was a journalism student right before my junior year. I was a journalism major, and journalism was a very popular major at the time, and I couldn't break through this, get a cap on the amount of students that could go through to journalism 201 and beyond. I think it was before my sophomore year, actually. And you had to be in the top 40% of students, except I had got an A-, but like half the class got A's. So I actually couldn't move on to the next level. And I went to my advisor, and he says, well, maybe you should consider transferring to Parkside, because they have a journalism program that's, that is actually, Parkside's a school in Kenosha, right by the border with Illinois. And he says, maybe you should consider transferring UW Parkside. They have a nice journalism program. It won't be as difficult to get into. He's like, obviously you have the talent, because you did get an A- in the class, twice actually. Mm-hmm. So maybe you should try that. And I stayed because I was so attached to the university and the athletics program. So, when a guy like Tim Higgins opens his mouth and questions whether or not it's worth the money, and students do spend a lot of money, for UWM athletics to exist, but we spend it collectively. I mean, I don't know what the segregated fees are at Cleveland State, but I know that you guys are funded almost entirely by student money, right?
Yes, 89. Yes, and the number that has been floated around is 89% of the $11 million budget.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's which is interesting because, you look at the stands, how many actual, 89% of their budget is coming from the student body, and how many students do you ever see at anything?
Well, I mean, this is what I say is that it's part of visibility. It's part of student retention. So maybe Cleveland State and Milwaukee, we're not getting it the right way for student retention.
Possibly not.
Student retention is making the experience. I'm sorry, but
speaking of retention, by the way, and yeah, we're gonna segue into it was something that that has been kind of a thing, especially as it relates to the Horizon League in general. You're seeing a lot of you're seeing a lot of movement. I mean, we talked about David Scarr earlier, but on the Cleveland State end. And this really wasn't that surprising to me, but Andre Yates is gone. He apparently has decided to leave Cleveland State University and instead of being a graduate transfer, which I thought was going to happen, which I thought might happen, he's just gonna go pro. He's just gonna go pro, and nobody knew about it for 3 weeks. Apparently, he decided to create a new Twitter account that nobody was following and posted up a tweet on May 20th about, hey, I'm turning pro. It's time for me to go to the next level, blah, 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 blah. He'll probably go to Europe. Again, not really that surprising a move. He wasn't, knowing where the direction Cleveland State is going, much younger, Gary Waters, had made a number of different comments about cleaning house. Starting fresh makes sense to me. And, that's kind of the ball game with him. And then, it's, I'm not really, Cleveland State has been signing people like crazy, even junior college people, which Gary Waters got burned once with and never really did it again until now. But, that's kind of how the ball bounces, and Cleveland State by no means was the hardest hit this season. Obviously, we can talk about the transfer situation. Milwaukee till the cows come home. Detroit got hit hard.
We actually will talk a little bit about that.
not even transfers really, but Paris Bass, who there was we've had Carrick Jones on here on the podcast a couple of times who talked about his academic situation, and it just went, and that was kind of the last straw, it looks like. So he's not coming back.
I guess with Paris Bass, I don't think it was just the academics. I've never talked to from what I hear and from people besides Carrick I talked to. I heard that Paris Bass was something of a clubhouse cancer, a little bit. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I know that certain players, actually most of the players, just did not really. He wasn't really welcome back, and I'm sure Bakari Alexander was going to want to get a fresh start,
which he already has.
And I'm sure that's part of it with Andre Yates too. I mean, I'm sure he looks at it as saying, the time is now to go make some money playing basketball. It's not the first time that a player in the Horizon League leaving early, even though they're not an NBA prospect. Sam Hanpa left Valparaiso to play pro after his sophomore year. I believe it was maybe junior year. But Sam Hanpa he left early to play pro. So it's not out of the question. I think it's just really I think it's a matter of Andre Yates saying, I can go make money playing pro now. Maybe if I take care of my money, if I get that extra year, and really and succeed, I can always come back and graduate later. So at Kentucky, do any of the Kentucky fans at freshmen who declare and go into the draft? No. So why should we feel angry, if a guy like Andre Yates just decides that he wants to leave and play his cards playing pro? It's
Mm,
Cleveland State, maybe, I don't know, because I think
mm.
Waters is, like you said, Waters trying to clean house, and the team is obviously not going to be winning anything incredible now, this next year. Why force him to stick around when he doesn't want to be here?
Yep.
And why would you
Well,
want?
that's the other thing too, because he was done, and I'm a little surprised. He probably it didn't look like he was able to. From what it sounds like, it didn't look like he was able to become a graduate transfer. Apparently, he wasn't going to be able to do what he needed to do to finish up and be able to transfer to another school as a graduate. So this was apparently this from what it looks like. This looks like Plan B. It looks like. So I don't know, and with everything, with kind of all the changes that all the incoming folks coming into Cleveland State, it's not too surprising. I mean, would have loved to have his leader, would have had loved to have his leadership this year, but obviously that's not going to happen. So, which brings me to my last thing, speaking of Gary Waters.
Yep.
Gary Waters, by the way, is on Twitter. He's actually, he has a verified account. Gary Waters does. Tweeted in more than a year.
Isn't it like the Gary Waters way or something like that?
Yeah, yes, that's right. However, in May, something amazing happened. And I say amazing because, dear God, we have way too much time on our hands, guys. And believe me, myself included, believe me, having gone down this road myself. Well, not fake Twitter accounts, of course, but we now have an Evil Gary Waters account at Evil Gary Waters, and I need more. Jimmy, I don't know about you, but I need more of this in my life.
Well, I always was kind of disappointed that the Commish Lacrona account kind of went away. Like every now and then you see it pop up a little bit, but I was always kind of disappointed about it. But Gary Waters is so much more ripe for caricature than Lacrone. So, I mean, the guy himself is like a caricature. You go to one of those tourist traps, like those tourist destinations. You go to like Atlantic City or here in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Dells. And like, say I go to the Dells and I'm walking up the Broadway, the main street, and there'll be like one of these sidewalk artists, and what they'll do is they'll do a caricature painting of you. And like it's like, oh hey, it's like a picture of me with a giant head, and I got like a skateboard or whatever I want to tell them that I'm going to be holding. And it's like, and I think of Gary Waters as being a guy who's ripe for that. Like you can picture like that, like airbrushed, like painting of him where he's got the big head and they overemphasize the gap in his teeth. And he's got the cry, like he's such a character. And he acts so wildly at times during games. So he's a character that's ripe for this, this kind of parody. If these Twitter parody accounts are going to continue to exist, then Gary Waters most definitely is one that I want to see. And whoever's running it, they are doing a fantastic job. I think I've gotten into like 3 or 4 arguments with them over just absolutely nothing.
Yes, you have. It's absolutely awesome. There is some real speculation as to who exactly is behind the Evil Gary Waters account. I maintain that I think it's somebody within athletics, just because, and maybe it's because of maybe it's because of, kind of the complacency. I mean, I wrote about, how basically Cleveland State won 9 games. They're last in the conference. They were last in the conference in attendance for the second year in a row. And basically nobody's losing their job, even a symbolic firing. So, I mean, and what struck me and what made me think that possibly that it was somebody within athletics, because he keeps tweeting about, people within athletics that you wouldn't even think of. Like, for example, Associate AD Tom Tantamonia, he's in charge of the business dealings and all that stuff. And he's pounded on him a couple of times, which I don't know of any. There's not a lot of fans who don't really know a lot of the infrastructure of the way the inner workings of athletics. So when I saw him starting tweeting out, associate ADs like they were nothing, I'm like, whoa. I mean, this guy knows a lot. I mean, a lot. So he probably knows more about a lot of different things that we probably have no clue about, which is amazing.
What are some examples? Are there? Do you have a bunch of? I'm going through his timeline and I'm trying to really to see.
They have to know somebody has to know something's going on, because two of Gary Waters' actual assistants blocked him on Twitter. Both Larry DeSempler and Cornelius Jackson blocked him. So
I don't know why they would want to. I don't know. I mean, maybe, the funny thing is, he's got quite a few, I wouldn't say admirers, because it's not like he's built up a huge following base.
He's only got 52 followers, guys, and so I mean, I don't know what to tell you on that one.
I know that I was talking to one of our now former coaches, and we had mentioned the account, because he's like, I'm surprised you didn't I'm surprised you didn't start a Amanda Braun parody Twitter account. And I'm like, well, the parody Twitter account's not really my thing. And then I mentioned the Gary Waters one, and he's like, oh yeah, a lot of us are rolling about that one.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, oh, it's hilarious. And
it is. It really is. Like I said, I need more of this. I need this more in my life. I'm not even kidding.
He actually thinks it's Gary Waters that's running it, which
let's not get too crazy.
I mean, I know that doesn't make sense.
I know. By the way, I know that I'm pretty sure that Gary Waters himself didn't tweet from Gary Waters' account. Okay, from his actual account. So I'm not. I wouldn't be exactly. Yeah, if he's gonna no. As much as I would like to think that he did that, no, not really. So, but yeah. So in closing, I think keep on keeping on, evil Gary Waters. Let's hope we do not get on your bad side, and easier said than done for you, Jimmy, but he seems to be I haven't gotten on his bad side yet, so at least we got that going for me.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, seriously, he's like, he's some of these internal things, like the athletics internally has like this awards show, and he tweeted about that, and back in early May, and so I think I don't know, I'd be very interested. I don't think it's I don't think it's going to come out who it is, and that's okay, because the less time, more time that it takes for everybody to get it. I figured that that's not going to be the case. So anyway, so with that, I think we can wrap this up I think we can go ahead and wrap this up for the summer, Jimmy.
Yeah. So it was good. It was good to get a slot in. So thanks everybody for listening. I hope everybody has a great summer.
Absolutely. And you can find us on fourlights.fm and wherever you can find good podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, you name it, we got it. Tune in. We're there. So we'll see you in the fall, and we'll come up with some new shenanigans to get into.
Take care, everybody.